Hey folks, welcome to Unqualified, the fantasy football podcast that's been buying ice cream on Facebook since 2017. I'm your producer, Rob Diesendorf, here with Shot Bronson and Scone JD, two fantasy football rivals that have been sabotaging each other for years. But they decided to come together to help you win your league and make your friends look like idiots. Did you guys know you can buy ice cream on Facebook now?
Did not know.
Yeah. Where are you getting that?
I don't know why, and I don't know how, but I saw it, and I know it's available.
Are we talking
Halo
like
Top?
Are we talking like Ben and Jerry's, Haagen-Dazs? Like what kind of ice cream are we?
Halo Top
Halo
ice
Top?
cream.
Yeah. I've had that
They're
before.
like-
That's pretty
They're
good.
like modern, I guess they're modernized
It's like a
ice cream.
substitute or something. Oh, I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah.
Also, what are you talking to? Who are you talking to right now?
Shot
Scone
Bronson.
or Shot?
Scone
I didn't know
JD.
if you were
Which one of
asking
us is which?
Scone
world may never know.
JD. And Shot Bronson.
Halo Top is a great low-calorie, high-protein, low-sugar ice cream. There you go.
Wow, that's actually sounds very enticing.
Oh, aren't
And
they
you can buy it
good?
on Facebook.
They sound like the goody two-shoes of ice cream. If I'm going to buy ice cream, I'm going straight to Ben & Jerry's. I'm not going
Yeah.
to mess around. I'm not messing around with my ice cream.
I'm going to Cold Stone.
Okay.
No one. Oh,
That's
okay.
like a luxury option.
Yeah,
That's where we draw the line.
You got to go
Yeah,
with like
yeah, totally.
the bottom of the barrel of the Ben and Jerry's, like just the one that's like been left in the freezer because people are overlooking it, like Cherry Garcia usually.
Do you go? What's that? Chunky Monkey. Do you go for that one?
That's a good
Chunky Monkey's my favorite.
Yeah,
What's
I
the
like that
one?
one. Someone was
Half-Baked
talking
is the
shit
best
about
one.
that one the other day, and I was a little
Half Baked
upset.
is the number one.
You know which one was really great? Late night snack. That was the one with potato chips. With
Oh
the,
yeah, I didn't know that was the name of
chocolate
it.
and the potato chips. Oh
True
my God.
innovators. Those Ben,
Wow.
that Ben and
Yeah,
Jerry.
I don't know why they discontinued it.
Wait, what was that called again? Late night snack.
Late night snack. It was like Jimmy Fallon's ice cream.
Wow.
Well, no, they have the Tonight dough now.
The
After
Tonight
Jimmy
dough.
Fallon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
got
but
that
it
right
doesn't
now.
have potato chips.
But I think
in
they
it.
took the potato chips out for some reason.
Yep.
Also, can we talk about fish food? That one's dope.
That's a good. That's Swedish fish,
food's
right?
good.
I think so.
Or is it like chocolate fish?
No, I
don't
think it
I've
has
ever
like
had that.
graham crackers or something in it and chocolate.
Caramel
Oh, I've
swirls
never-
and fudge fish and gooey marshmallow. Yeah,
Oh, I've never
Oh, there
had
you
that
go,
one
fudge
actually.
fish.
that one's good. Those at home, try that fish food. It does not have Swedish fish in it.
Is there a bad one? There's no bad Ben and Jerry's flavor, right?
No, not really. No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
Mm.
you can't go wrong.
Mm-mm.
All right. Well, what happened in fantasy football this week
A lot.
besides me getting destroyed again?
What didn't happen? Let me lead off this one just by saying Deshaun Watson is, what is he, like the second coming of Jesus Christ? He's like the greatest football ever to grace this earth. He's been
maybe
phenomenal.
Russell Wilson. I don't know.
We're not going to really get into him too much in our blue chip segment just because we're going to talk about him here, but he was outrageous again, second week in a row with I think 5 total touchdowns. Really, really good back-to-back weeks, and this guy is like suddenly a top tier QB1. Maybe not top tier, but definitely a QB1.
Yeah, I would say high end QB2 or QB1. I mean, he overcame a really tough matchup at Kansas City with 5 touchdowns. It's insane. He had a 2-point conversion run too, so a little added bonus there. But he looks poised in the pocket. The best part about that is he looks Russell Wilson-esque in the pocket.
Yeah.
His ability to make plays with his feet it's unparalleled so far. One of the takeaways that I got here was the learning curve of rookies. So we got Tariq Cohen, we have Deshaun Watson,
Kareem Hunt.
Dalvin Cook, Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette. All these guys are producing at really high levels, especially in fantasy. So, the rookie curse or the rookie, whatever you want to call it, it's not really, it doesn't really exist, especially for rookie running backs. So I was wrong about that going into the season, but love to see the rookies are really shining.
Yeah, I think a big part of that too is those two positions in particular, quarterback and running back. Those guys have the ball in their hands a lot. Rookie wide receivers, they still have to earn the trust of quarterbacks, which is why they're kind of typically slower to come along. I know we had that 1 year with Odell and Mike Evans and Kelvin Benjamin where we had the greatest wide receiver draft class in 20 years. So that's more of the exception than the rule. I think running backs and quarterbacks coming into the league are going to get opportunities to be fantasy producers right away. So don't shy away from them next year. Learn your lesson this year if you pass on these guys.
Great point. One quick thing too about just overarching themes here after 5 weeks. So obviously we're pretty much into the season now. We're almost halfway through the season, if you could believe it. Most seasons are, it's bye week season. But most leagues are 13 weeks, so we're pretty far along already. One thing to keep in mind: it's not the time to freak out. If you're 2-3, even if you're 1-4, you still got a chance to make the playoffs. Don't freak out and bench your studs for some no-name guy. Don't try to sell high on too many guys that haven't been producing. They still have time. It's still early in the NFL season, but at fantasy season, we're getting there. But just don't freak out. Trust your gut. Trust your studs. They'll come along, and we'll tell you if they're not.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't trust my gut.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, your gut it steers you wrong.
I'm just panicking and making terrible decisions left and right. I don't know what to do anymore.
I would say, just to add real quick, you want to get to probably like ideally you want to be 8-5 or better, but you can get into the playoffs. You might be able to sneak in at 7-6 at the end of the fantasy regular season. So don't, like Scott said, don't panic if you're 1-4. If you're 0-5, obviously you might want to start making some moves. But again, the season's not over yet. Yeah, we're into it, but bye weeks are when things start to get shaken up a little bit. So I wouldn't panic at all. All right, so the biggest news from week 5 is definitely the injuries, and one injury in particular. Typically, we go position by position. Running backs Bilal Powell and Terrence West both had calf injuries. Both are probably day-to-day. Not really super significant, but the big one, Scott. Odell Beckham Jr. fractured his ankle, will have surgery out indefinitely, probably the whole year. This is a big one. What do you do if you're an Odell owner? Yeah,
it's brutal. If you have an IR spot, I would think about putting him in there. I don't think there's any chance he comes back this year. But if you're in a keeper league, I would hold on to him because I think he'll come back obviously next year. Yeah. Barring any injuries in the offseason. Yeah, setbacks. But this is the same ankle that he hurt earlier in the season, and it was a 4-6 week recovery, and he came back in 3 weeks. Which was beyond me why they brought him back so quickly. It was way too early. So I can't say you can't really say I saw this coming, but it was stupid. He was questionable both weeks that he came into that he came back for. So I don't know. It's kind of silly, but that's a huge blow. And this passing game is going to take a huge hit. I think Evan Engram is going to be their best target for the rest of the year.
Even I knew he came back too early. Yeah. I don't know anything about football, but I know about injuries as an athlete. Just you got to as much as you want to come back,
let it heal.
If you come back too early, it's always going to screw you in the end. Even worse.
Look at what Andrew Luck is doing right now with the Colts. He's taking his sweet time, and he's much more likely to remain healthy when he comes back than Odell was. Odell, I think they kind of rushed him back because he was clearly functionable. He could do all the things he normally does, but he definitely wasn't ready. I think this is just shows that. And
poor management, honestly. It was very poor management.
And to make things even worse for the Giants, they lost Brandon Marshall to a sprained ankle, probably a couple of weeks. Sterling Shepard also injured his ankle. He's probably going to be out a week or two. And Dwayne Harris, their fourth best wide receiver, fractured his foot. He's also out for the season, with likely Odell out for the year. So this team lost their top 4 wide receivers this week. That is a huge, huge letdown for this passing game.
Yeah, and Marshall and Shepard were injured on the same drive. Different than Dwayne Harris and Odell, but that's just brutal. They had to sign a guy to the practice squad. They also signed someone else from, I think, another team's practice squad, and so it's a nightmare. Roger Lewis might be the best wide receiver in week 6 because if Shepard, Harris, Beckham, and Marshall are out, they're going to Roger Lewis probably. So that's an ugly situation.
Yeah, I think, outside of probably Wayne Gallman, who we're going to talk about, when we get to the waiver wire, I don't think I'm touching a single Giant.
I had Eli in one league as a bye week fill-in, and I think he's just going to be even worse now.
Yeah.
I mean, he had all those guys healthy coming in and into this week when I had him, and there's going to be none of them. So I agree. Staying away.
Basically, we're big time down on the Giants. It's just negatives all across the board. Evan Engram might be, a nice kind of garbage time guy now, but still, it's hard to get excited about a team that just lost, again, their top 4 receiving targets, or, top 4 wide receivers at least.
Yep.
just to tack on a couple other minor injuries, Devontae Parker sprained his ankle. He's looking like he's at least going to be hampered if he does play. Charles Clay looks like a pretty serious knee injury, so
You got a scope.
That's not fun, and that's a
Multiple
really
weeks.
big setback for a guy that was, really starting to come into his own. Rob Gronkowski, another tight end. This is par for the course. A really kind of surprise absence in their Thursday night game. Sat out with a thigh contusion. I think he'll be back week 6, but this is just brutal. If you didn't get if you didn't check your team on Thursday night because it kind of came out of nowhere. So again, some more minor injuries. I think most of those guys outside of Clay and then, of course, the Giants receivers will probably be back in the next couple weeks, if not next week. But definitely guys to monitor as we keep going.
All right, let's talk about blue chip guys for week 5. Moving into each position. We're going to do quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and some defenses that crushed it week 5. Starting with the player of the week, first of all, though, Leonard Fournette. 28 rushes, 182 yards. Yes, 182. 2 touchdowns, 1 reception for 3 yards. That's good for 30 standard points, 31 PPR, and the guy crushed it. Gashed that Pittsburgh defense.
Yeah, his 2 touchdowns were absolute things of beauty. First one, he kind of dove over every player on the field at the goal line. And the second one was a 90-yard score, which just honestly was poorly defended by the Steelers, but can't take that away from Leonard Fournette. Had a great day. He's been really, really good all year. He's a rock-solid running back 1 right now, and, you could do a lot worse with the best player on your team.
Yeah, he looks like a high-end running back 1, too. I mean, that 90-yard touchdown, he had some jets, and that the typical part of his game is power, but he looks fast as hell. Look like a gazelle, if you will. All right, blue chip guys, quarterback. We're going to go pretty much 3 or 4 each. These guys all look like QB1s again, and we have some homesteads here. Dak Prescott, 25 of 36. He had 3 touchdowns to the air, 1 rushing touchdown for 29 points standard, and again, looks like a QB1. Carson Wentz had 4 touchdowns, 3 in the first half, and absolutely destroyed that Arizona defense. That's good for 27 points. Again, looking like a QB1, maybe a low-end QB1. Cam Newton, 355 yards, 3 touchdowns. No rushing, really, but 26 points again. Another solid outing. And then Aaron Rodgers, 3 touchdowns. Not much to be said about him. He's a top 2 guy. But what do you think of these other 3 guys, Prescott, Wentz, and Newton? Who do you like the rest of the year? Who is the most value for you?
Begrudgingly, I'm going to say Cam Newton just because he looked completely done the first couple of weeks of the year, but he's been rock solid the last 2 weeks. Not to take anything away from the other 2. I really like all 3 of these guys as mid-tier QB1s, more so than, low-end QB1s. But I think Cam, after another back-to-back good performance, I think it's safe to say Cam is definitely back in the QB1 discussion. For me, I own him and Carson Wentz on one of my teams, and that's going to be a weekly decision. That's really going to come down to matchups because both those guys have been balling out.
Yeah, could be worse for you. That's pretty good decisions.
I just picked up Cam on my team in a trade, and I didn't put him in.
You idiot. Did you play Eli instead? I don't even know what you did.
He did.
Yeah, I took Eli.
You fool. That's just silly. Well, yeah, you heard it here first. Don't play Eli over Cam the rest of the year. Okay?
I'm a sucker for the Giants.
I
just
know
had
why.
to put him in.
Yeah, after losing 3 of his top wide receivers.
They have a special place in my heart. I have to put... If I have a Giant player, I got to play the Giants.
Yeah. Well, don't do it anymore. Play Cam.
Fine.
It goes out to all you guys too. All right, running back. Obviously, we said Fournette. He killed it. Melvin Gordon, a really good bounce back week. He didn't have any rushing touchdowns. He did have over 100 yards though. In the receiving game, he had 8 targets, and this is his MO now that Woodhead's off that team. He's catching it a lot, so he has a lot more PPR value. But he had 6 catches, 2 touchdowns, 58 yards in the through the air. Looked like one of Phillip Rivers' top targets.
Yeah, he was, by far the best offensive player on the field, including Odell Beckham. So Melvin Gordon, if you take PPR into account, was the top scoring flex player on the day. Really bounced back from, he was banged up last week and the last couple weeks, honestly, but he looked really, really good in this game. And something had to give in that Chargers-Giants game, and I think Melvin Gordon finally had his breakout performance.
Yeah, pushing the Giants to 0-5. And then we had Aaron Jones, Green Bay running back, filling in for an injured Ty Montgomery. And again, another solid game. He had a touchdown last week, under 100 yards last week, but this week had 19 rushes, 125 yards, one rushing touchdown, and then one catch. Nothing of note there, but this guy looks like a really solid waiver wire pickup as long as Montgomery's out, and maybe even when Montgomery comes back. One quick thing about Montgomery, he had the most snaps for a running back, so they're going to ease him back into action, and this looks like it might be a timeshare after week 5. So Aaron Jones, one of the top pickups. Wide receivers, let's talk about these guys, the blue chips. AJ Green had 189 yards, 13 targets. Looks like a top 5 wide receiver, and not much else to be said there. Devontae Adams, coming back from a scary concussion, had 2 touchdowns on 11 targets. Looking like, Aaron Rodgers' second favorite target, but a definite wide receiver 2. T.Y. Hilton, 177 yards, and then Antonio Brown, 157 yards. Obviously, we know A.J. Green and Antonio Brown are top 5 guys, but Devontae Adams, T.Y. Hilton, who would you rather have the rest of this year?
As much as I love Devontae Adams, I think I'd rather have T.Y. Hilton just because he's putting up stat lines like this with Jacoby Brissett playing quarterback. When Andrew Luck comes back in, maybe 2 to 3 weeks from now, this is going to be, a regular occurrence as opposed to, an every other week thing. T.Y. Hilton, I think, is he's still a boomer bust option with Luck out, but this guy is clearly a yardage machine. He just moves the chains.
Yeah. It's what's funny about these two, they're like complete opposites. Like T.Y. Hilton always gets a ton of yards every year, like 1,400 yards, and it looks like he's on pace again, even without Luck. And rarely has over 6 touchdowns. I don't think he's ever had over 6 touchdowns in a year. Devontae Adams last year, his best year, had double-digit touchdowns and under 1,000 yards, but that's both their MOs. But I think I'd rather have T.Y. Hilton too, showing some consistency now without Luck. Tight ends, new face here, Ed Dickson, 5 targets, 5 catches, no touchdowns, but 175 yards. And I think he had 2 catches over 50 or 60 yards, and that's the first time a tight end's done that in a long time. 22 PPR points, 17 standard. Are you picking him up?
It really depends. Like in one of my leagues, I own Charles Clay, who we mentioned before, got a little banged up.
Yeah.
And if Clay's going to miss time, Ed Dickson is looking like, he could be a solid, low end tight end one, maybe like a bye week fill-in type of guy. So I wouldn't mind picking him up. I wouldn't feel super. I don't think he's going to go for 175 every week or even anywhere close, but he could definitely be a solid option.
Yeah. One guy that obviously is owned in every league. Travis Kelce had a good game. Watch out for his health. He had to exit the game a little bit. But another guy, George Kittle on San Francisco, similar situation to Dixon, but 83 yards, 1 touchdown, 9 targets. You picking him up?
No, I think San Francisco really wants to run the ball a little bit more than they did today, and I don't see Kittle being like an every week, mainstay in the in the blue chip column. I think he's more of a boomer bust guy, touchdown dependent tight end.
I agree. Yeah, I would rather have Dixon over Kittle. And then let's talk about a couple of defenses and kickers that did well. Jaguars defense, 5 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, 9 points against at Pittsburgh. Going into this game, honestly, Pittsburgh is a scary place to play, especially as a defense. But that passing defense, we mentioned it last week. Jalen Ramsey and AJ Bouye, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, are, I think, the best cornerback duo. Jalen Ramsey has the quarterbacks playing against him coming into this week had like a 14 rating, and it's got to be even lower now that Ben threw 5 interceptions. Jaguars 27 fantasy points, looking like a top 5 defense that you can keep in every week.
Yeah, I mean, the MO of how teams should attack the Jaguars is to just run the ball all over them,
right,
because their linebackers are built for coverage, their defensive linemen are built for rushing the passer. But the Steelers, for whatever reason, chose to keep trying to air it out. I think Antonio Brown had 19 targets. So
yeah,
look, I mean, if you try to beat this team through the air and you're just forced to pass the whole game, they can do this type of thing to you. Obviously, I think a lot of this has to do with Ben kind of imploding, but Jaguars D is looking real solid right now. I would not mind them as an every week play. I'd probably only sit them against the top offenses in the league.
Yeah, New Orleans or New England or something like that. Dolphins, good bounce back week for that defense. They had 6 sacks, 1 touchdown, 10 points against for 19 fantasy points. I wouldn't look too far into it. Maybe, matchup dependent defense that's a little better than what we thought they were. And then Adam Vinatieri, 4 for 4, 2 field goals of 50-plus yards, made both of the extra points for 18 fantasy points, and this offense looks a lot better than it did week 1 or 2. So, are you going back
he was
on
mad.
Yeah.
He was mad that we said he was droppable a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he definitely listens. Friend of the pod.
This
Maybe
guy's the
pick him
ageless
back
wonder.
up.
2 50-plus yard field goals. That is, he's doing that for a reason. He's doing that because he's still one of the best kickers in the game. Obviously, when Luck comes back, he's going to be even better. So maybe a little bit of like a nice waiver pickup if your kicker's underperforming.
And the run game looked better with Marlon Mack. They're breaking off some big runs, so that offense is starting to hum a little bit.
All right, so those were our blue chip guys for week 5. Scott, for whatever reason, gets the fun part, gets to introduce the guys that played well. It's my job to introduce the guys, the duds from week 5, the guys that completely let you down. We're going to start with the quarterbacks, and it doesn't get much worse. This might be the ugliest game we see from any player all year. Ben Roethlisberger hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars, 5 picks, 2 pick sixes, and 2 fantasy points. So this guy had as many fantasy points as he did touchdowns thrown to the other team. Brutal game for him. Russell Wilson also had a subpar game, 2 picks and 10 fantasy points. And Tom Brady had a, uncharacteristic Thursday night letdown with 1 interception, 1 fumble, and 12 fantasy points. Obviously, I think we'd agree that Big Ben is the biggest worry of these 3. Between Russell Wilson and Tom Brady, are you hesitant on either one of these guys, or is this just a blip in the radar?
Yeah, Tom Brady, no. Obviously not. I mean, he's been killing it all year besides Kansas City week 1. Big Ben, we've told you all along you needed to pair him with like a Kirk Cousins type or a Carson Wentz type because Big Ben's getting older. His weapons are there, but he's just not getting this offensive line pass protection wise has been a little subpar. Hasn't been putting up QB1 numbers, and he looks like a fringe QB2 right now. But I'm a little worried about Russell Wilson. If you take out his 2 games where he played at Tennessee and at Indy, or at home versus Indy, which are 2 really shitty pass defenses, he's only averaging about 12 points a game, and that's not really starting territory for your quarterback. So if you take those 2 games out, obviously he had good games. He's barely a quarterback 1. He had under 200 yards passing in the other 3 games, including this week at the Rams. So I'm a little worried about him. Hopefully their bye next week really helps them out and they get on the same page. But he looks off with his weapons with Baldwin. The running game is a mess. So I'm a little worried about Russell Wilson the rest of the year. Maybe he's still QB1, but a low-end one.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Let's look at these running backs. A lot of subpar performances this week. Starting with my boy, Todd Gurley, finally came back down to earth. He had 14 rushes for 43 yards, only 4 standard points, 6 PPR points. J.J. was also, not great. He had 77 yards, but he also fumbled, so only 5 standard points. DeMarco Murray, 58 yards, but again, a fumble, so only 4 standard points. Amir Abdullah, comes back from his best game of the year and just lays an egg. 10 rushes for 31 yards. And Jonathan Stewart on the Panthers, 18 rushes for 21 yards. That's less than 2 yards per carry. For me, I'm not super worried about Gurley, but which of the rest of those 4 guys are you worried about?
Yeah, honestly, Jonathan Stewart, you drafted him probably round 10 anyway, so
yeah.
You didn't really expect to get anything out of it, and McCaffrey's slowly coming on. He's always been the pass catching back, but Stewart, 18 for 21 is brutal, but not really worried about him because he's not really your starter. Abdullah, same thing, but a little bit earlier. I'm more worried about Ajayi. He had 25 rushes, 77 yards. He hasn't had a good game really this year. And obviously they had their bye technically week 1, but he's going to be playing the rest of this year. He doesn't have a week off to kind of figure it out and assess what's going on, but you drafted him as your second best guy, and he hasn't looked like that at all. So he's a running back 2 for me for the rest of the year. And going into this year, he was a fringe running back 1, but I'm a little worried about his production right now in that offense and that team. The team just looks in disarray.
Yeah, it's going to be a little off-brand for me because I was such a big DeMarco Murray hater coming into the year. I think when Mariota comes back, Murray will be just fine as like a high-end running back 2, low-end running back 1. So I'm more worried about Ajayi. I agree. Let's look at the wide receivers. It was actually a fairly consistent week for most wide receivers. I mean, even some of these, duds. Mike Evans had 5 for 49, and Golden Tate had 5 for 48. That's not terrible. But Martavis Bryant continues to disappoint, 5 receptions for 21 yards. And Sammy Watkins with a big fat goose egg, as Scott would say. Yikes.
I wrote that. Yep.
I think Martavis Bryant and Sammy Watkins are kind of in that flex tier. Which of these guys would you have, more hesitations about starting if, you need a flex player at the wide receiver spot?
Watkins for sure. I mean, Big Ben threw it a ton this week and at least got Martavis the ball 5 times, albeit 21 yards. He's still looked rusty, to be honest with you, Martavis Bryant, because he had that whole year off last year for the suspension. He should put it together. Hopefully Big Ben has some serviceable games. Obviously, we just said he's going to be like a QB2 in our opinion, or my opinion at least, but Martavis should kind of turn it up because Antonio Brown, has so many defenders on him. Sammy Watkins, though, 0 catches and had 1 catch last week for 17 yards. Hopefully he figures out what's going on, but he's had really good efficiency, caught most of his targets, but he's not getting targeted a ton. So that's problematic to me.
Yeah, I think it says a lot that Jared Goff looked to Cooper Kupp on that, potential game-winning play.
Yep.
Cooper Kupp is his go-to guy. It's not Sammy Watkins. Sammy Watkins is like a really, really nice accessory piece, like a really, really nice watch or something that you don't really need to complete the outfit.
Exactly.
He's not the,
nice.
Todd Gurley and the inside receivers are, that's how they're going to beat teams on offense. So, I agree. I think I'm pretty worried about Watkins, and, Brian is a boomer bust guy. You're going to have games like this if you trust him week to week. Tight ends. It's been a brutal year for tight ends in general. Let's look at just a couple. OJ Howard coming off his best game as a pro. Again, 1 target for 0 catches. Jared Cook had 3 for 25 and a fumble. So that's pretty brutal. And Eric Ebron had 1 catch for 6 yards. None of these guys did anything for you in any format. So are any of these guys startable next week?
No, and we mentioned last week Jared Cook, even though they're going to have EJ Manuel throwing it, he dropped a big potential touchdown last week, and this week had 3 for 25. We mentioned he's probably not going to do that well this week. Year long, probably not going to do anything. Derek Carr might come back week 6, but that's a long shot. Eric Ebron, we also mentioned you could probably drop him. OJ Howard, very matchup dependent. But Cameron Brate looks like the best tight end there. But to be honest, I don't feel great about any of them. I guess I would take Cook over all these guys, but I wouldn't even think about picking up Cook. Even if I lost like a Charles Clay this week, I still wouldn't.
Yeah, I'm happy I switched my would you rather that involved Cook last week. I switched it last second because I just momentarily forgot how frustrating it is to own this guy.
Yep.
I don't trust any of these tight ends week to week. And real quick, just to wrap it up, 2 defenses that let you down this week: the Raiders and the Giants. The Raiders just didn't have it, and the Giants got shredded by I was going to say San Diego, Los Angeles Chargers this week. I don't think either of these teams is a defense you could trust in any given week. The Giants were really good last year, but they're a mess this year. So,
yeah.
Anything to
add? No.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I think what we can all take away from this is you don't always need the Rolex. Sometimes you just need this dirty old Timex.
Or the khakis.
Cheap. You can get it at Macy's, but it's always going to work. Those batteries last forever.
Did you just run an ad at the end of our dud section?
I'm getting money from Timex on the side.
Oh, Jesus.
All right, let's talk about some guys that can help you win in week 6 and on. Talking about waiver wire, guys who are cuttable, buy low, and sell high. So a couple of guys we want to highlight for waiver wire pickups. Sean and I agree pretty much on all 4 of these guys. Basically running backs. That's the deepest position in fantasy. We all know that. But our number 1 ad is Aaron Jones, the Green Bay running back. He showed a ton of speed and
really
agility.
Good.
Looked really good. He looked much better than Ty Montgomery did. Just the eye test that we always talk about. Even if Montgomery comes back next week, he should push him for carries, Aaron Jones. And then the other second guy is Matt Breida, San Francisco running back, who got more carries than Carlos Hyde. He had 10 for 49. Hyde had a little bit of an off game. And Shanahan said he was kind of pushing or playing the hot hand, but worth a pickup, and especially as a backup or a backup to Hyde.
Yeah, I agree. I think Breida is kind of more of like a pass catching back, like just based on his type of player that he is. But Carlos Hyde has a very checkered injury history. So Matt Breida, would, if Hyde were to go down, he would be a nice running back 2 option. This guy is definitely a talented, another rookie that can step in and, play without a learning curve, like we just mentioned, to start the podcast. So again, I really like Matt Breida as an add in all leagues. Doesn't just have to be PPR. So really like those 2. And 2 other guys to mention. These are actually 2 guys that I mentioned in our draft podcast before the season. Again, just based on their situation, not necessarily knowing that much about them as players, but Marlon Mack, the Indianapolis running back, and Wayne Gallman, the Giants running back. So both these guys are, Gallman's coming off 2 semi-productive weeks. He's gotten a decent amount of work and has looked pretty good, much better than Paul Perkins ever did. And Marlon Mack he looked pretty explosive this week. 9 carries, 91 yards, and a touchdown. So both these guys, I think, are definitely edible.
Yeah, and we mentioned last week, I think we mentioned Gallman as a guy to pick up. And then I think week 1, we mentioned Mack as a guy to pick up because he got the same amount of carries as Frank Gore in week 1. He was injured a couple of weeks in between, but Mack had 9 for 91 and 1 touchdown and looked explosive, way more than Frank Gore. So I think you're going to start to see that backfield kind of shift in that direction, or at least a timeshare. Frank Gore is 34 years old or something. And then Gallman, the only knock on him is that he's going to split carries with Orleans Darkwa, who had a long touchdown. And he's a giant. And they're what we thought the Jets were going to be coming into this year. They're 0-5, and they just look brutal on offense. But Gallman might be the only piece on that offense that's worth rostering. I wouldn't say starting, but picking up and rostering at this point. And Evan Engram, forgot about him.
Yeah, I mean, so it's really going to be like a more traditional running back and tight end combo. The Giants are, going to be very vanilla moving forward if I, were to predict anything.
I agree.
All right, so in order to add those running backs, obviously we're not throwing a ton of names at you this week. Bye weeks really tend to slow down this waiver wire process. Guys who are definitely cuttable in redraft. I don't think Rob Kelly is really the answer for Washington. He's been dinged up the whole year, and if you want to pick up one of these other guys, I would not hesitate to drop Rob Kelly. And I think those 2 Giants wide receivers that we talked about, Brandon Marshall has been awful outside of being injured this year. Now he's hurt. I would definitely drop Marshall, and then Odell, if you're in a redraft league and you don't have an IR spot, I think, it's going to be tough to waste the roster spot. Once he does have surgery, we'll know a little bit more, but I don't really see him coming back this year.
Yeah, a couple others too. Terrence West, he had a calf injury, and that backfield is really split between Alex Collins and Javorius Allen. So Terrence West is droppable. Charles Clay, he's going to be out for multiple weeks. So if you need a roster spot and you need a tight end, he's just going to be using a spot up basically. And then honestly, if you have a situation where Deshaun Watson is not picked up in your league and you have Big Ben, I wouldn't hesitate. I wouldn't really hesitate dropping Big Ben, to be honest, to pick up Watson. Couple other guys that are potentially cuttable that didn't do well this week and haven't been good all year. OJ Howard, 1 target, 0 catches. Eric Ebron, 1 catch, 6 yards.
Yep.
Couple of names to throw out you there to drop.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Let's look on the bright side for a second.
Yeah, we're always on the we're talking about injuries and guys aren't doing well.
It was a depressing week, but what we're going to do now is we're going to take some depressing production and we're going to try to project it forward. So we're going to talk about buy low targets right now. We're only really going to highlight one each. For me, this is a guy I loved coming into the year. I still love moving forward. Mike Gillislee, New England Patriots running back. I think he's going to start getting more and more work as the Patriots try to run teams off the field to keep their defense off the field. So I think Gillislee will be much better moving forward than he has been in the first couple weeks.
Yeah, and then one other guy, Amari Cooper, it's perplexing me what's going on with him. He's had 3 weeks where he's had, in standard leagues, non-PPR, under 1 point, which doesn't make any sense. He's been dropping a ton of balls. I think he had 31... He has like 31 throws at him this year, and he has 11 catches. So besides the opening drive...
and he has like 8 or 9 drops, I think, too.
Yeah. Besides the opening drive of week 1, he hasn't had anything close to production like his production of last year. So it's not going to get any worse. Let's just say that. It's not going to get worse. I think he had 6 or 8 targets this week anyway, and only 1 catch. But you have to think once Derek Carr comes back, that team, and that could be as close as next week, the team's going to hopefully click a little bit little bit better than they have been. They've been brutal, and so is Amari Cooper. But it can't get any worse.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, the Raiders aren't stopping anybody on defense, so I think there might be some garbage time potential with this team, which is not what we anticipated coming into the year. I think we all thought they'd be a powerhouse, but there still is room for them to be a productive offense, even if they're not a good team. So I think that's another thing to keep in mind with, when targeting some of the Raiders as buy low targets. And then real quick on the other side of things, sell high targets. This guy's, you just mentioned before, was perplexing you. I don't get it at all. I mean, he's a good player. He's a lacrosse guy from college, played at Penn State, but Chris Hogan, where did this come from? I don't see this continuing for the rest of the year. I mean, crazier things have happened, but I think you would sell him right now. He's, putting up wide receiver 1 production. I would sell him for anyone that's a consistent wide receiver 1 or 2 right now, just because I kind of see him hitting the decline in a couple of weeks, especially as Brandon Cooks gets more integrated into the offense.
Yeah. It's funny. I was just thinking, if I was a Chris Hogan owner, would I trade Chris Hogan for Amari Cooper? And I think the answer is no. I don't think I would want to go that low. Yeah. I think Chris Hogan still has a lot of value, maybe a wide receiver 2 or 3 for the rest of the year, but he's very touchdown dependent. And week 1, he only had 1 catch for 8 yards. So you saw the floor there in terms of like what he could potentially put up, which is like a goose egg. There's just so many wide receivers on this team and pass catchers, and he's been doing really well with Gronk kind of hampered. And Amendola was out 1 week, and Brandon Cooks,
and they're not running the ball that much,
and they're not running the ball exactly. Yeah. So it's been very wonky, and I think you need to strike while the iron's hot and get as much as you can. A consistent wide receiver 1 out of him, and maybe even a running back if you can too, if you need running back help. And then another guy, Will Fuller. So 3, I know, I love him too, but he had 3 targets this week, 2 catches, and 2 touchdowns. And he had 2 touchdowns last week in his first week back from injury. That's not going to continue. So, 3 targets is nothing in a game where Deshaun Watson threw it a ton and had 5 touchdowns. That's good. He got touchdowns, but he didn't get a consistent amount of looks to warrant getting 2 touchdowns consistently. You know what I mean? So I think if you have an owner that's trigger happy for a wide receiver and you need a more consistent guy for a running back or whatever you need, tight end, quarterback, you could sell Will Fuller high and make a good case. All right, let's get into Week 6 preview in the form of Would You Rather. Again, shout out Joe Shikoda. We love this segment.
Thank you, Joe.
This is my favorite segment for sure. It's
National
the fun part.
Treasure.
National Treasure, yeah.
Joe,
is Joe a national treasure, or is the Would You Rather a national treasure?
Yes.
Or both. Yes to both.
Is the answer.
Yeah. Nice.
Better watch out.
Really quickly, I want to talk about buys for Week 6. So the 4 teams on buy are the Bills, the Cowboys, the Bengals, and the Seahawks. So, if you have, we're not going to mention each individual player, but if you have Bills, Bengals, Cowboys, Seahawks, any of those players out of your lineup, they're on buy. And we are taking that into consideration. So, would you rather? We're going to talk about each position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and then 3 good matchups in each. Three sets of matchups in each. So there's a good, moderate, and bad matchup set. And then we're going to choose between those 2 choices. So, quarterback, for good matchups, Week 6, we have Deshaun Watson versus Cleveland or Carson Wentz at Carolina. Who you're taking Week 6?
Oh, man. Let me preface this by saying that I am absolutely 100% in on Carson Wentz this week, but Deshaun Watson has been so unstoppable the last 2 weeks, and now he's playing Cleveland this week. I just think the likelihood that he goes off again is way too high. I think I'd go with Deshaun Watson over Carson Wentz.
If you could put up 5 touchdowns on the road at Kansas City in the loudest stadium in the NFL, proven the loudest stadium, look that up, decibel-wise, I think you're going to thrash Cleveland. Maybe you're not going to get 5 touchdowns to the air, but you're going to get QB1 production there. Carson Wentz, that's not to say anything bad about him in Week 6 or anything, but I'll take Deshaun Watson. I agree. Moderate matchup, Phillip Rivers at Oakland or Cam Newton versus Philadelphia at home.
Oh, man. We buried Cam 2 weeks ago. We held a funeral service and everything. That was a terrible call by us. He's looked great the last 2 weeks, and even though I think Phillip Rivers is going to just crush Oakland this week, I'm still going to go with Cam. I just think his upside is way higher than Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, I think Cam has been killing it. That is one of our worst calls, to be honest. It's not as bad as my Eddie Lacy call, but it's pretty bad. I'm gonna take Phillip Rivers at Oakland. I think Oakland's they're just in disarray right now. Their outside cornerbacks aren't bad, so that just means Tyrell Williams, Travis Benjamin will be bottled up, but that just means more work for Keenan Allen. Hunter Henry in the middle, Melvin Gordon had 2 receiving touchdowns, so I'll take Rivers on the road at Oakland. Bad matchup, Jameis Winston at Arizona or Big Ben at Kansas City, week 6.
I can't in good conscience pick Big Ben coming off that 5 interception performance in week 5. So I'm going to go with Jameis. I think Carson Wentz just showed that you can pass on Arizona. They've been a very good defense for the past few years, but I think there's definitely room for Jameis to have a good week in week 6.
Yeah, the only thing about Arizona that scares me is Patrick Peterson, and everyone says Patrick Peterson. So he's obviously one of the best cornerbacks, shutdown cornerbacks, but he's only on one side of the field. So he's going to shut down Evans, but Winston has a ton of options. He has Charles Sims. He has Doug Martin establishing the run game. He has O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate in the middle for the tight ends. Deshaun Jackson just had a good breakout game. So I think Jameis Winston will do well on the road at Arizona.
Real quick, just to kind of touch on that, I think Mike Evans is one of the few receivers in the league that can still have a good week, even though he's being covered by Patrick Peterson, just because he's so big. We saw in the past, Calvin Johnson was kind of the only guy that could really get anything going with any sort of consistency against Patrick Peterson. Mm-hmm. And I think Evans, if nothing else, is definitely built like Calvin Johnson. So I wouldn't take Evans out of your lineup either. I would not overreact to that matchup.
Exactly. That goes back to what we were saying in the beginning. Don't freak out. Don't overthink it. Play your studs. They'll perform. If they don't this week, like Mike Evans, he'll be fine the week after. Don't freak out.
Yeah.
All right, it's time for the wild card. Now,
oh, baby.
I had something planned here, but I'm doing a last-minute change because you mentioned National Treasure before, and it reminded me of something else. So here we go, wild card. Would you rather go on vacation with Nicolas Cage
or
go bowling with Taylor Swift?
I'll go bowling.
Jesus.
I'll go bowling with Taylor Swift. No questions asked.
Sean hates Nicolas
I have a
Cage.
deep-seated hatred for Nicolas Cage. I can't really explain it, which is the best kind of
hatred.
I just, something about him is just something's like dissonant there. There's something wrong with Nicolas Cage, dissonant. And it really rubs me the wrong way. So I'll take option 2.
You know what's
you, Scott?
You know what's really funny? A bowling commercial literally just came on Monday Night Football as soon as you said that. I'm looking at Bull Right Lanes in Summit, Union City right now. Anyway, how long is the bowling game?
You know she's going to insist on using bumpers too.
It's like one game of bowling.
That's it?
Yeah, well, it could be more
I'd say
than
3,
that
like a 3 game.
How long is the vacation?
All right, 3. Best of 3. Best of 3.
And I had to hang out with her after. Is that the thing? Is that a thing or no?
I didn't say anything about that.
No, it's just bowling.
I'll take that. I'm not going on vacation with a weirdo like that. No, I'll take the bowling.
You'll be like on the beach and he'll be like, we got to steal the Declaration of Independence.
Nick, it's not here.
Joe, you better watch out because Nick Cage might be coming after you.
I think he's going to be on the show next week.
But here's the thing, though. If you go bowling with Taylor Swift, you know she's going to be competitive as hell. Like, something bad's going to happen. She's going to get really upset or start being super sassy. But if you go on vacation with Nicolas Cage, I mean, does anybody really know what that guy's like?
No, I don't think there's any distinction. This is like a meme that we sent to each other, but there's no distinction between Nicolas Cage's real life or his movie life. There was he did something that was like stealing. I don't even know what it was. We'll look it up. We'll post it on our.
He's an enigma.
Social media, but
not the good kind.
Not the good kind. Yeah, no vacations. No.
That was a good one. That was a really good one.
I think
we didn't prepare for that either.
I think I'd pick a vacation with Nick Cage just because I just want to see what happens.
What?
Yeah, you do that for us and let us know how it goes.
Yeah,
I will.
Let us know how the vacation in the Caribbean with Nick Cage is on the beach.
All right.
We'll let you know how bowling goes. Running backs for week 6. Would you rather? Good matchups. Mike Gillislee at New York Jets or Amir Abdullah at New Orleans. Who are you taking?
Oh, 2 underperforming flex level guys right now.
Right.
I'll just go back to what I said when I told you Mike Gillislee is my buy low target. I'll take him this week at the Jets, even though the Jets have been kind of stingy against the run. Mike Gillislee is due, I think, for a nice big game. I think the Patriots are going to need to lean on the run game And I think this might be the week they start getting to it.
I'll take Abdullah. Gillislee's just a one-trick pony, and he's getting he's getting double-digit touches in the run game. He's not getting any catches, which scares me. It's James White. It's also Deion Lewis. He came into the fold a little bit last week. So Amir Abdullah will have a bounce back week, I think, at New Orleans. They're going to need to rely on him. Matt Stafford's a little banged up. The passing game is so lately. Kenny Galladay's been out, so I'll take Abdullah. He's catching some balls out of the backfield too. Should be a shootout. Should be a good game. Big offense there. Moderate matchup: Marshawn Lynch versus the Los Angeles Clippers. Just kidding. Los Angeles Chargers or Frank Gore at Tennessee. Oh wait. Oh, really quick. I saw a sign today that said the Giants lost to the San Diego Chargers.
Oh man,
rookie move. They're not
that
San
is a
Diego
rookie
anymore.
move.
Rookie. Anyway, Marshawn Lynch versus the Los Angeles Chargers or Frank Gore at Tennessee.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, as much as I love Lynch, I would usually pick the alternative just based on the fact that he's hasn't looked beast mode like so far this year. But when you're looking across at Frank Gore, I think I'll still go Marshawn Lynch just based on the fact that he's going to get a ton of volume. Yeah, they might get crushed, but I think the Raiders are not going to have much in the way of alternatives. I think they're going to have to run.
Yeah, Chargers are a pretty bad team. They're 1-4, so I think this will be a pretty competitive game with EJ Manuel, which means they'll run it a lot. I think Frank Gore at Tennessee defense got thrashed by Lamar Miller and Dante Foreman at the Houston running backs a couple weeks ago when they scored 57 points. The team did at least, but he has some competition there now. Marlon Mack just did pretty well, and he's the ageless wonder, but it's going to slow down eventually. So I'll take Marshawn Lynch too, as much as it pains me to say that. And then bad matchup: Aaron Jones, the Green Bay running back phenom, at Minnesota, or Javorius Buck Allen versus Chicago at home, or Doug Martin at Arizona.
Oh, this is actually, I like all three of these guys next week. Despite the tough matchups, I think I would go with Doug Martin just based on the fact that we might see Ty Montgomery back, ahead of schedule. It's possible. But I think more than anything, I think Philadelphia again showed that you can run the ball in Arizona. Arizona might be a terrible team this year. So I think Doug Martin could have a nice big game in week 6.
I'll actually take Javorius Allen because Terrence West is hurt now. In this order, I'm going to take Javorius Allen versus Chicago, then Aaron Jones at Minnesota, and then I'll take Doug Martin last. The reasoning there, Doug Martin is he was not on the field on Thursday when they were playing New England when they were down. It was all Charles Sims catching balls out of the backfield, and they're going to slowly ease him in. I think he had 13 carries, but this run defense is pretty good. With 13 carries against Arizona, you're not going to do much damage with that front seven. Javorius Allen had 21 carries, and then he's the pass-catching back there. And you're seeing Jerick McKinnon on week 5 have some value pass catching out of that backfield against Chicago. And then Aaron Jones, I think they're going to slowly integrate Ty Montgomery back, and Aaron Jones is going to have a ton of carries too. So I think Allen, then Jones, then Martin in that order, but I'd rather have Allen, to be honest.
All
right, and wild card, here we go. Would you rather have everyone disappear from your Facebook pictures except you, so you look like you're posing the same but with nobody, or start every conversation by telling people you're scared of your dad?
Jeez. I'll go with the first option. These are both pretty I don't know the
pretty
the term.
Awkward.
Yeah, they're both. Yeah, that's perfect. They're both very awkward scenarios. I'll go with the first one. I don't post a ton of Facebook pictures in the first place, so I think that's slightly less awkward than every conversation starting with just a terrible introduction.
I'd like to start this by saying, big surprise, it's awkward and Rob made it. I wonder how that happened. Sorry, Rob. Is that too far? Are you upset?
I'm proud of it.
About it.
I think you're great. Sorry, Rob.
No matter what you say.
Anyway, I'd rather start every conversation.
I am beautiful.
Mm-hmm. It'll be your turn in a second.
No matter what they say.
It's my turn
still.
Let the man talk. Jeez.
God, shut up. It's my turn. So I would rather start every conversation by telling people I'm scared of my dad, just because the people that I'm probably talking to are they know my dad, and they know that's not true. So it's an awkward conversation, but I feel like I could play that off way better than having weird pictures.
You're gonna look really lonely. Either way, somehow. Let's play it out. Let's play out the scenario real quick. Ready? Like, start a conversation with me.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, what's going on, Rob?
I'm scared of my dad.
Hey there, Bob. How you doing there, Bobo?
Scared of my
Scared
dad.
of your dad there, Bobo? Sorry about that.
I don't know. I think I'd pick the Facebook one because I'm going to delete my Facebook pretty soon. I'm getting sick of it.
Yeah, me too. Well, I'm not going to delete it, but I'm getting sick of it. All right. Anyway, wide receivers. That was going, Rob. It's the lonely theme. We get it. The wide receivers for Week 6. Good matchups: Tyreek Hill versus Pittsburgh or T.Y. Hilton at Tennessee.
Oh wow, two really explosive guys. I go with T.Y. Hilton. He put up a ton of yardage last week. Tennessee has been getting crushed. Obviously, even Miami had a little bit of success throwing on Tennessee. So I think T.Y. Hilton is in for a big week in Week 6.
Yeah, I'll take Tyreek Hill. Pittsburgh looked like crap last week, and the Chiefs they had a okay Week 5. They've been crushing it though. I just want to say a stat about the Chiefs. Dating back to the end of 2015 season, do you want to see if you could guess what their record is?
The end of 2016?
2015. So
2015?
That was all last year.
2-10.
No. What?
That's
all this year. That's all last year, and a couple of games of 2015.
5 plus
10-1-1.
No, it's a good record. Let's just start with that.
18 and
not including playoffs. I think they're 27-4.
Oh, I missed a year. Sorry. Wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
27-4.
That's absurd.
Yeah. So I'll take Tyreek Hill. I think he's just way too explosive. T.Y. Hilton at Tennessee. It's a good matchup, but Andrew Luck's still not back. Moderate matchup: Kelvin Benjamin versus Philadelphia or Jarvis Landry at Atlanta.
Ooh, this is tough. I don't love either of these guys. Kelvin's still a little bit banged up, but I think I'm going to go with him because he did have a really nice touchdown catch last week. And I think they're going to need to throw to keep up with Philly. I think that might be a much higher scoring game than people think. Philadelphia and Carolina both have good defenses, but I think it could be a really, really exciting game. So I'll go with Kelvin.
I'll take Landry at Atlanta. Their cornerbacks on Atlanta are pretty good. The outside two, I think it's Robert Alford. I could be wrong about that, but Desmond Trufant is a shutdown corner. But Jarvis Landry's a slot guy. Their third cornerback on Atlanta. I don't know his name, but he's not as good as Desmond Trufant. Let's just say that. And Devontae Parker might be out, so I'll take Landry just in terms of volume.
Okay.
Bad matchup: Alshon Jeffrey at Carolina or Devontae Adams at Minnesota.
Give me Devontae Adams. Just one of Aaron Rodgers' favorite red zone targets. Jordy has been mysteriously on and off this year. He might be more injured than we know. And Devontae Adams came back from one of the most horrific hits I've ever seen to post 2 touchdowns last week. So I think I'll stick with him this week.
I agree. Jeffrey, Carson Wentz threw 4 touchdowns, and Jeffrey was no part of that game. So I'll take Adams too.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm up, aren't I?
Yes, you are.
Yes, sir.
Here's the wild card. Would you rather eat bees or swim with snakes?
Oh, my God.
Eat bees.
I'd just like to point out that I came
swim
up
with
with this one.
snakes.
It's the most weird. It's the
This
most
was
fucked
made
up
by
one.
Scott.
Yeah.
This is tough.
It's a good one.
I'm just gonna go with eat bees because I hate snakes. It's my least favorite animal, and I don't want to swim with them. I just feel like they'll be swimming up in places you don't want them.
You're going to eat bees.
I'll eat bees.
I'm going the opposite.
I'll just grit my teeth and eat them.
Think about it they sting the inside of your mouth. You're done, man. You're donezo.
Yeah, but what if a snake bites your fucking toe off or swims? Oh, gross! I don't know.
We don't even know what kind of
swims
snakes
in your,
they are.
I don't know. Maybe they're small snakes. They swim in your ear or up your nose.
Oh God, you really
you don't even
snakes.
you can't even
I've
stop
never
them.
even thought of that.
Yeah, it's disgusting, right?
Still doesn't change my mind. I'm not eating bees. That is brutal.
Yeah, I'm not. There's no way I'm eating bees.
It's multiple bees, but that doesn't mean it's 500 bees. It could be 2 bees. That's what I put it down as.
I would rather go on vacation with Nicolas Cage than eat bees. All right.
What about eating bees on vacation with Nicolas Cage? Wait. How about eating bees on vacation with Nicolas Cage for $500,000. You can't make it $1 million. Would you do that?
Okay.
No, I guess not. Okay.
I don't think so. Would you rather eat bees with Nicolas Cage in Italy or dive into a pit of snakes strapped to Taylor Swift?
Bees. Nice one. Bees with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, that would change the stakes because I think Taylor Swift would like freak out and
she'd be
like try to use you to like pull herself out of the water.
Yeah.
So you'd probably wind up drowning.
1,000%. She would push you in.
Yeah,
first,
that's not gonna work.
You would drown in snakes. Can you imagine drowning in snakes? Oh, that'd be terrible.
Nicolas Cage would be like, "Oh, these bees aren't too bad. I'm gonna steal them for later." All right, tight end. Good matchup. Delaney Walker at Indianapolis or Martellus Bennett at Minnesota. Two kind of underperforming guys, but came into the season at tight end ones. They're just low end tight end ones. What do you think for week 6?
Yeah, normally I would go with Delaney just because I think he's a little bit of a better receiver than Bennett. But the fact of the matter is that we don't know if Marcus Mariota is going to be playing this game at Indianapolis, and we know Aaron Rodgers is going to be the best quarterback on the face of the planet at Minnesota. So I'll go with Bennett here.
I'm going to go Walker. Matt Castle threw it to him a little bit, but they just didn't throw it a lot. But Indianapolis, the defense just looks like the worst part of their team, which is not saying much. We're saying a lot. I don't know the term. Whatever. Taking Walker. Moderate matchup. Austin Seferian-Jenkins versus New England or David Njoku. Is that how you say it? At Houston. The Cleveland Browns tight end.
Njoku? It's like it's like a halfway silent N, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, man, this is tough. I wouldn't feel great about either one of these guys, even though they've been, in the case of Njoku, at least putting up some nice touchdown production. I'll go with Austin Seferian-Jenkins versus New England just based on the fact that New England's defense looked a lot worse than Houston's has the rest of the year. So for that reason alone, I'll go with ASJ. Is that his nickname?
I think that is. Yeah, I'm taking ASJ as well. That defense is terrible, but he's not catching, like his yards per catch are like 5 on the year. So it's just short dink and dunk passes.
But he's like 6'7", 6'8".
Yeah, exactly. I think he's 6'7". But looks like he's becoming one of Josh McCown's favorite targets, which isn't saying much, but I'll take him. Bad matchup.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Wait, real quick. Again, remember we said Josh McCown loved Gary Barnidge a couple of years ago. He kind of took like a nobody tight end and made him a fantasy star. I'm not saying that Austin Seferian-Jenkins is going to be on that level, but he, that's a good little chemistry thing to keep in mind, especially if you just lost a guy like Charles Clay. So,
hey,
don't sleep on ASJ.
Wow, that's some real shit right there.
Ooh.
Wow.
BD.
They ain't ready for this heat.
Are you
Scott.
kidding me? That was such a qualified take. That was ridiculous. Anyway.
Let's get back to our roots.
Wow. Oh my God. I'm like really impressed right now. Bad matchup. Cameron Brate at Arizona or Ed Dickson versus Philadelphia.
Oh, this is tough.
It's a tough one. Yeah. Well, both of these guys, just like background on these guys, Cameron Brate has been crushing it. We kind of mentioned like you want to stay away from the Tampa Bay tight ends like 4 weeks ago, and then kind of changed the tune on that. But Arizona has been historically pretty good against the tight end, and then Ed Dickson had a great game, over 150 yards receiving. But Philadelphia, since last year, has barely gave up any touchdowns to tight ends. So riding the hot hand with these guys, or are you staying away based on matchups? And which one are you taking?
I think if I had to take one, I'd go with Brate just because he had a great year last year, and we know that he's got, a relatively high ceiling. Dickson, we don't really know a lot about. Obviously, he put up a ton of yardage last week, but that's kind of on 2 big plays that kind of looked like blown coverages to me, so I'll go with Cameron Brate this week.
I agree. Nothing else needs to be added. Rob, you're up.
All right, here we go. Wild card. Would you rather always fumble your change after purchasing an item?
Oh, man.
Or accidentally drunk text your accountant?
Oh, man. All right.
So random.
Why did I
know what I'm
enunciate
doing.
accountant so well?
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get myself an accountant because I don't have one. Then I'm going to drunk text him because there's no way that I'm fumbling with change every time I purchase something. That's like one of my biggest pet peeves. So I'll go with the drunk texting my accountant.
I start sweating and get red in the face after like 5 seconds if I can't get the bills in my wallet correctly. And like, forget it. We were going to put in like fumbling with your change for 2 minutes, but we took that out. But even 10 seconds is excruciating. So I'll drunk text my accountant. I don't give a shit. Ask him how the spreadsheets are going.
10 seconds feels like 2 hours when you're fucking...
Yeah, you're not kidding.
When you can't get the dollars back in your wallet. Like,
and then you want to put it in, like, you want to put the bills in, the order of amount. But,
exactly.
But, like, you can't do that quickly enough, so it's just brutal.
And then I feel
usually...
like you have a bunch of ones together, and then there's, like, a phantom 5 or 10 in there. And sometimes I feel like I paid with, like, 4 singles, and one of the quote-unquote singles is, like, a $10 bill. And, of course, a cashier's not going to tell you that. Those fucking scums.
Yeah, I always try to, like... I try to look like externally calm when that happens, but really what usually ends up happening is like I'll just like crush whatever's in my hand and just shove it in the wallet. So I just end up with like a mixture of like receipts and bills and change like
you gotta
in
clean
the
it out
wallet
later.
section. Like I don't even put my change in my pocket. Like the change goes in the wallet and then it's just a mess, and then I just deal with it in the car because there's no way I'm going to look like an idiot. In the
What a
supermarket.
nightmare. First world problems, am I right?
Yeah.
All right. Streaming defenses for week 6. The Falcons are hosting the Dolphins. Dolphins offense looks terrible. Chargers at the Raiders. You got EJ Manuel starting. And then the Packers at the Vikings. Sam Bradford got hurt in the Monday night game again, and he just looks out of sorts. Case Keenum is starting, who isn't doing badly this year, but still the Packers' pass defense has been a little suspect with the run defense. They're going to shut that running game down, and I feel like they're going to bottle up Case Keenum in the passing game pretty well because of that.
Yeah, I like all three of those. I especially like the Chargers. I kind of see that game a little differently than you, I think. I think the Chargers are going to crush the Raiders this week.
Nice. Wow. Excellent. All right. This section is a brand new section. So
Nice.
we're calling it Hail Mary and Fail Mary. So Rob would like to take credit for this, but I don't think he actually thought of this. I don't think you actually thought of this earlier, Rob.
I did.
All right, I'll give you a little credit, but friend of the pod, Dan Rustico, gave this idea, this beautiful idea of Hail Mary and Fail Mary. What it is, Hail Mary, we're going to talk about one random guy that isn't projected to do anything that we think can hit it big this week in week 6. And then Fail Mary, one top-end guy that we think is going to flop completely. So, Sean, we're going to talk about one flex guy for each of these Hail Marys and Fail Marys. We'll start with the Hail Marys, or your Hail Mary. Who do you got for week 6?
My Hail Mary, the guy I think is going to be a little bit of a surprise after this week is San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Marquise Goodwin. This guy's
Nice.
coming off a 116-yard day where he got 11 targets, so it's not necessarily like out of, like left field. It's kind of out of like left center, but I think he repeats, and I think he goes over 100 yards for the second week in a row, even against a tough Redskins defense. The Redskins might be missing Josh Norman, so this situation, basically to me, the way I see it is it's essentially Kyle Shanahan having Taylor Gabriel on his team again. Taylor Gabriel, obviously a very talented wide receiver for the Falcons, kind of like just a speed guy, minus the rest of the Falcons. So he's going to try to get this guy the ball, and this guy is exceptionally fast. I think he's definitely, Pierre Garçon is obviously the San Francisco's number 1 wide receiver, but I think Goodwin is really their home run threat, and I think he'll have a nice week this week.
Nice. All right, my Hail Mary for week 6 is Roger Lewis, New York Giants wide receiver at Denver. Yes, it's a bad matchup. It's a no-fly zone, but Roger Lewis had a touchdown in week 5. He's pretty much the only guy there. Now that Brandon Marshall, Dwayne Harris, Odell Beckham Jr., and Sterling Shepard all look to be out for week 6 and some of them on. It's just going to be a volume game here. I think Eli's still going to throw it. Their running game is terrible. So Roger Lewis at Denver, maybe a speculative pickup in a deep league there. My Hail Mary pick for week 6. It's going to go in reverse order. I'm going to do my Fail Mary next. Okay. So Fail Mary, top end guy that we think is going to flop, or I think is going to flop. My guy is Mike Evans, the Tampa Bay wide receiver. He's going up against Patrick Peterson at Arizona. Again, Patrick Peterson, one of the top shutdown corners. Mike Evans had a pretty bad game at or against New England on Thursday night. I think a lot of people are expecting a bounce back, but I don't think this is the week to expect it. I think he's my Fail Mary for week 6.
I'm going to use this segment right now to put something out there into existence. I'm going to put my Fail Mary as Tom Brady, New England Patriots quarterback, playing the Jets. I think the Jets have been sneaky good so far this year. Tom Brady has looked way off this year. He had a couple of good weeks, mixed in the first 5 weeks, but I don't see him putting up 20-plus points like people are going to expect. I think he's going to be closer to the 10 to 12 range that we saw, this week. I think he's going to continue to struggle, and I think we're going to start questioning, whether, he might be done after this year or, at least in the next couple of years, as opposed to, people talking about him playing for the next 5 years because he's some health nut. I think Father Time catches, up to everybody, and I think this might be one of the biggest signals this week when he plays the Jets.
Nice. And that wraps it up for week 5 recap and week 6 preview. Rob, you got anything? What are you thinking for week 6? What did you think of week 5? What do you think for week 6? What do you got?
I thought week 5 was a hell of a week, and it wasn't a good week for me. It hasn't been a good week for me for the past 3 weeks. It just seems like it's one obstacle after another, and I think I'm just going to lose a lot of money.
Sounds good.
And week 6, I think I'm going to get destroyed again. So
lose even more money.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, everyone ask us questions. We're putting up polls on Twitter every Thursday for our Thursday night games. Getting some guys that are out. We're giving you guys some updates, but it's Unqualified FF at Unqualified FF on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes and leave us a review. That helps the show go. Again, it's all
and
Sean,
share
Rob, and I, and
the pod. Share the pod. It's been working, and it's going to keep working. You got to share it. If you tell
Grassroots,
one friend,
baby.
If you tell one friend about the pod who hasn't heard about it, they will listen. If they like it, they'll listen again. And then tell them to tell their friend, and their friend can tell their friend, and their friend can tell their friend. And then everybody can be talking about the pod together. That's all I got.
Nicely put.
Yeah.
Well, see you later.
Well, see you later.
See you later.